Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I am Sarah Martin with The Contoured Chemist. Today we're gonna do a little troubleshooting video, and I don't think I've ever done a troubleshooting for this particular topic all in one video, and that is troubleshooting color. More specifically in regards to 3D foundation, what happens if the color is wrong? And we're gonna go over every aspect of 3D foundation, from highlight, contour, lip and cheeks, bronzer, what else is there? Illuminator, all of the different facets. We're gonna focus on color, how to adjust color. If your color is off for you, how to know, what to do about it. I feel like I've done a lot of troubleshooting application, but this is gonna be like, how do you know if it's an application error or just the color is wrong for you? So if you wanna check it out, please keep watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and thanks for being here. Okay friends, so this video is gonna be hard for me to distinguish between, I feel like sometimes when we're talking about aspects of color, the way you are applying the color can make a huge difference. I think we can all agree that if you have 3D foundation, you know the difference between if you apply too little or too much, how vastly different the color can appear on your skin and therefore affect your entire look. And so when you're troubleshooting color, knowing if it's a color issue or application issue can be tricky. And that's where an artist comes in. I color match people for a living. This is what I do. There are a lot of different highlight shades, a lot of different aspects that go into color matching somebody. And I've been doing it for over 7 years now. I just had my anniversary last month. It has been a long road for me to get to the point where I can look at someone's face. I can tell you right away if you have the wrong colors or if it is an application issue, because I can color match in my sleep at this point. It is a skill. You have to train your eye and learn. And to be honest, it is years of troubleshooting with my clients one-on-one that has got me to the point in my business where I can say confidently, split second, by looking at someone's face if they have been color matched right or wrong. And that is number one, because if you are using highlight shades, which if you don't know, in 3D foundation world in Seint, these are your foundation, okay? People like to call them concealers. I don't like to call them concealers. I like to call them color correctors, brighteners maybe, but they work very differently than a traditional concealer and a traditional foundation. These creams are so incredibly pigmented. In fact, they probably don't even look like these would work for my skin tone. But the biggest misconception I see on a daily basis is people think that you can just pick one highlight shade and it will work for your full face with no issues, give you coverage, longevity, all the things. And in a perfect world, it would. But no, these are the total number of highlight shades we have. If you've looked at people's faces for any length of time, there are a lot more different skin tones in the world than this. You can't expect one shade to work for the entire world's demographic of skin tones. It's just an impossibility. And so the first thing you have to realize is that it isn't just one shade. Now, some people might be very lucky and have a skin tone exactly at that one tone and have no concerns on their face like some of us do that would need more coverage or multiple colors. But most people's face is not the same color. I have so many different tones in my face. I've got darker points, I've got redness, I've got a lot of hyperpigmentation, dark points, discoloration, things that I want covered, right? And I don't want to have to apply a lot of one color to get the coverage I want and in turn look cakey or heavy or look like I'm wearing a lot of makeup. So the key is with 3D foundation, understanding that it is a combination of shades that is going to be the perfect match for you. And it might have to change through the year if your skin tone changes. Me, for example, I self-tan year round. I can wear the same colors year round. And I also wear sunscreen every single day, whether I'm inside or not, outside, raining, doesn't matter. I've learned my lesson with the damage I've already done to my face. Because I'm an avid sunscreen user, my skin also doesn't change. But I know that I am the minority in that regard, and that most people going into fall, they get lighter, and going into summer, they're getting darker. And so knowing how to tweak your shades is also a great skill to have. Obviously, your artist should be able to help you, but if you are in doubt of whether your colors are right or wrong, you need verification, you want to double, triple, quadruple check, whatever the case may be, I'm always doing color matches. I'm always rematching people, doesn't matter if you're my client or not, because I want everyone to love this makeup. And I truly feel like if you were color matched wrong, it is very easy to not like it. And I don't like doing that because I do think it is the biggest game changer, the best makeup I still to this day have ever used. But you gotta have the right shades and you have to know how to use it properly. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about how do you know if your highlight shade is wrong. Since the highlights are the most important aspect of 3D foundation, if your highlights are off, you're not gonna get the coverage you want. You're gonna have a whole host of issues depending on if you are matched too light, which is the most common, to even too dark to where you feel like you just, no amount of blending is gonna get it to match, right? Most common is too light. Now all of these shades right here, you might think, those look like they would match. I cannot wear anything from here over on my face and get it to last an entire day because all of these are too light for my skin tone, okay? So just know that these shades are extremely deceiving. And most people are matched too light because color matching is an art. So first things first, if you are using one shade all over your entire face and you have certain areas that are fading through the day. So for me, for example, if I were to use any of those, the area around my entire nose would usually wear off. This mask area would wear off, usually my chin, my under eyes would start looking like I had nothing there through the day, and sometimes right in this area, okay? So what that tells me is those areas all are darker than that color. So in 3D foundation, if you are wearing a color too light, specifically for the point at which you're applying it, it won't last. It also sometimes will take a lot of product in order to get coverage on that area. Now you might even see it kind of really looking dry, almost emphasizing the look of texture on your skin. So say you have a lot of pores here, here's another trouble area. The chin is notorious for this. It'll almost look like your pores will stand out. I've heard people say it looks like it's sitting inside your pores like little white dots. 100% you're applying a shade way too light on an area. And I feel like the biggest issue is because people are used to applying a regular like liquid foundation and you know, you squirt out whatever and brush it on, and like you can apply like different amounts. It doesn't really like make this great effect on the way your skin is looking. But with these cream foundations, it is a huge difference. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna pick up the lightest shade in my compact and show you what it would look like on one of my textured areas. And you might say, well, Sarah, that's kind of looking like it's covered. Do you see how much I'm having to apply to that area? Now, what you can't see is that it is sitting in my pores. It's giving me immediate textural issues. Like my chin is not that bad. I mean, yes, I have texture there like most people, but I literally just like cleaned out my pores this morning. It should not be that textured. And that is because that entire area will probably fade in about an hour. And all of a sudden it'll look like, I've had people describe it as like, it looks like my skin is eating the makeup. Like it just completely disappears. A lot of that is color. Now, you can also have too much texture if you are just over applying. But in my experience, most people don't over apply unless the color's too light and they're trying to build up to get more coverage. That doesn't mean it can't fade for other reasons. And the number one thing I see is you're using silicone-based products in your skincare or sunscreen or moisturizer underneath the makeup. And our makeup does not work well with silicone-based. Water-based is key. Otherwise, it can just kind of like slip and slide off your face and looks like you're wearing nothing. The goal with your highlight shades, with me personally as your artist, my goal is that you can get the coverage you want, whatever you ask for on the color match questionnaire I ask you. If you're wanting natural or full coverage or both, I take that into consideration. So the concerns on your face. So you might say, oh, Sarah, your skin tone's pretty even. Trust me, it's not. I need a lot of help. Okay, so every darker point on my face, I'm going to use a darker shade so that I can use as little product as possible, and that way my skin can actually look like skin when I'm done. If it doesn't, that means I'm using a shade too light because it's gonna start looking very, what I call makeup-y. As you're layering on more to get coverage, creams will eventually look cakey. Normally, creams should never be cakey. With the right colors, they will not be, I promise. But if you're wearing a shade too light, it'll look cakey, it'll emphasize texture, you'll have less longevity, less coverage, and you might even tell me it feels heavy, it feels sticky, it feels tacky. That is another sign you're just applying way too much product, which is a sign of the wrong color, okay? So my goal is to get you in the shades where you can use as little product as possible and get the coverage you want. And normally that is much darker than you'd expect. Looking at all of these, I use this one. It looks way darker, right? It should be darker than the darkest point on your face. And if it's not, you're gonna have to use too much of that, and then it's gonna be hard for you to stay matching. So the way I color match is to your concerns. Say you have darkness under your eyes, I'm gonna make sure you have something to correct that and give you adequate coverage with little product, all right? So ask yourself, can I get a skin-like finish if I wanted to? Can I use very little product to where I am barely touching my creams and going in and getting all day wear with the right coverage that I want for myself on the daily, and I love the end result? If that is a no in any of those regards, you need a new color match. Like I said, I am always willing to help anyone love this makeup as much as I do. So I will link my color match down in the description box as well as the pinned comment. Happy to help. So I don't want to stress application too much. Obviously, if you're applying way too much product, you're gonna have some of those issues I talked about, like looking cakey, looking heavy, feeling tacky. You should not be able to feel this makeup on your face when you are finished. One of the many reasons why I love it. I'm going to first take a very little brush to control how much, and I'm gonna use that color corrector on the darkest points of my face. So very little that, look at that. Did you even see that dark of a product going on my face? No, that is your goal, okay? So I'm just going to quickly put that on all the darkest points. Now for my face, I have a lot of them. So I'm gonna be putting it across my entire nose. I've got rosacea, hyperpigmentation in my contour areas, lots of dark spots. Oh, don't even get me started. I'm like a poster child right now for PIE and PIH, which is post-inflammatory erythema and hyperpigmentation caused by acne. So I don't break out a lot, but when I do, Lord help me, I have these huge marks left over. So the good thing about my color corrector, and what I try to match people to, is a color corrector that is going to work for all of the concerns you have mentioned in your questionnaire. So say under eyes, I'm gonna look at the depth of your under eyes, the color of your under eyes. If you have broken capillaries like me, if you have acne, hyperpigmentation, I'm not gonna give you multiple color correctors when you can use one that will tackle them all. That's just unnecessary. Now know that the way you apply can vastly affect the way your match works out for you, but I always give detailed instructions how to apply yours with videos linked so that you never have questions over that. I have many videos on application and troubleshooting application, but I want to touch just on color. So if I go to this, which right now, this guy is the darkest point on my face. Usually it's this guy. If this gives me texture, if I'm having to use a lot of product to cover it, what does that tell me? I need to go darker because I gotta match the darkest point or go slightly darker in order for that color to last on my face, on that point, all day long. And so right now I'm gonna tackle my under eyes, in fact, my entire eye, veins, redness, depth, darkness, hyperpigmentation, redness. Did I miss any? I've got it all going on today. So I'm gonna use the lightest hand, smallest amount of product possible. I'm not gonna apply so much product that you're gonna be like, Sarah, you have orange spots on your face. That is not the goal, okay? The goal is to use very little. You should not be having to work really hard to blend. You should think of this almost as like a wash of product. Now, I'm gonna wash those areas, very light hand. And when I say wash, I mean like, I'm going to very light-handedly put it across the entire area. And you can kind of tell it's gonna like start correcting slowly. And then once I feel like, okay, I've got it evened out with the rest of my skin tone, now I can go back in and I can start pressing on more product, okay? But I'm never gonna be left with this big orange spot or this big dark spot. If that is the case, we need to adjust your corrector shade. Okay, so buffed on, small amount, then went in and pressed on more where needed. Now, I can still kind of see that spot, but it really doesn't bother me. It looks a lot better than it did before. So I could go in with a darker corrector and then kind of stair step down into this corrector, but I'm still not done. I'm still going in with my main shade. I'm not gonna go over a lot about the specifics of it, but I will match you to a corrector if needed. Then you're gonna go in with a main shade, and this main shade is designed to give you an evenness to your skin tone. So this is the most similar to a foundation color. And I use it now. I don't have a very even skin tone. I have freckles everywhere. I have very mature skin. I need my skin tone to be even. I can't stand it when it's not fully covered everywhere. And it's not that I want it fully covered. I want my skin to show, but I want my skin tone to look more even than it naturally is, right? Is that so hard to ask? So my main shade is gonna kind of neutralize some of that warmth. If you can tell, obviously my corrector was very warm, too warm for me by itself. So this is gonna bring it down a notch so that I'll still be matching my neck. So the best, easiest way to get medium to full coverage is using a corrector and a main shade in this method. I am just gonna take my main and a big soft brush, and this is where I just kind of tap it all over. You can use as little or as much as you need to even out your skin tone, but this is gonna build up my coverage. Now, if you are using this method and this color is not neutralizing your color corrector or not keeping you matching your neck, then this is the wrong color, meaning maybe it's not neutral enough. Maybe you need something. I see a lot of times where people are given a shade that's more in the yellow family. We have a lot of yellow-based shades, if you couldn't tell. Yellow tends to naturally brighten the skin. Obviously, we have a lot of yellow in our skin, but the biggest difference I see is when people are given a shade too yellow, that they're using a corrector, which our correctors are mostly going to be a warmer tone. The undertones of it is what will kind of cancel out some of those blue, purple, darker points on our face. It is more of that orange in it because depth in our face is excess blue. These orangey, warmer tones are the best color correctors. And so if you're using something naturally that has a lot of orange in it, and then you put something very yellow over it, what is that gonna do? It's gonna make your yellow shade even more yellow because you're adding orange to it. Does that make sense? So this main shade should be at a certain depth to bring you back to matching your neck. And so as an artist, we're looking at all of those things. And that's why this one is a neutral tone. Otherwise, it wouldn't work for me. This method would not work for me. Now, if I was to go in and like way over apply this shade, it could pull me, again, too dark for my neck. So application is always a factor, and you'll notice how very little of this I'm actually using. Just enough to kind of even out my skin tone so it no longer looks so discolored. So say I go in with my main shade and I'm like, okay, but I still didn't get to build up enough coverage on this. Like you're still seeing the depth. There are no rules that you can't go back and apply more of your color corrector or go in with, again, like I said, a darker color corrector till you've kind of reached that depth. I'm just gonna go back in with mine because I feel like I just need to spot correct this because it was such a small point. I'm gonna go ahead and go in with a more detailed brush on both of these. So that I can make sure it's pinpointed. This one doesn't bother me as much, but if I really wanted to, I could go in and get more coverage there. Hyperpigmentation sometimes can have more texture on that area, that spot, than the rest of your face. And so if that's an issue, like you're trying to build up coverage on a spot of hyperpigmentation that has naturally more texture, it can be difficult because as you are building up coverage, you are still adding texture of makeup. All makeup has texture, right? So for me, I'd rather have that sit smoothly and have a little bit of a shadow to it than to build and build and build more color into where it looks textured on my skin. Does that make sense? It's a preference thing. Okay. I am now happy with that amount of coverage. We're gonna go ahead and skip the brightener step because we're gonna go into contour. Now, you will see a lot of artists contour first. I am not one of those people, and here's why. So when we're talking about contour color, there are quite a few contours as well, all right? If you are wearing one of these very lightest shades, most likely you're probably having issues with being able to see it on your skin. I will be honest, I don't even color match to these two light shades. To me, they make better color correctors than contours. I think I might have a couple of clients out of thousands that actually wear them as contour colors. So just know you're usually gonna start in this if you're a medium skin tone, and as you get darker, you'll have to go darker down the list. But they are at different undertones. And so if you believe you have the wrong color, it's pretty simple, okay? Depending on which one you have, you can go within the lineup at that depth and go either warmer or cooler. If you are like me, you have rosacea in your cheek area, you might realize you can't wear any contour without it pulling orange or red or looking warm on your skin tone, because that redness always is going to show through unless you color correct first, like I did. I have to, or every contour, even the coolest contour, will pull warm. So when people come to me and are like, my contour is off, and I ask them how they're applying, application is a huge part of contour, because I can give you a different color contour, but if you're not correcting the skin issue under it, your skin will always show through that color and affect the way the color is going to look on your skin. So I can wear Astoria, the coolest one, and it will still pull warm on my skin tone because of my redness. So know that that is the easiest thing to tweak. If you have a contour, it's not pulling the way you want, try applying your highlight under it first. Try doing what I do and color correct and then apply your highlight. It's going to give you more coverage in that area, and it's also going to make the color look more true to what it's supposed to be. So if it's supposed to be a cool neutral, it will look more like a cool neutral when it doesn't have redness affecting its level of warmth. Does that make sense? So my two go-tos now are, because of my skin tone, are Astoria, which is cool, and Cedar, which is warm. Depending on the day and depending on the look I want for that day, or depending on what I'm pairing it with. So if I'm feeling very washed out and I need a lot of bronzer that day, I'm probably not gonna go in with a lot of bronzer and a warm contour, because overall I'm gonna look really warm. If I want my contour to look natural, I want it to look like a natural shadow. And naturally, shadows are gray based. They're really not warm. Now you'll notice all of our contours they're not super, super warm to where they look like a bronzer. And they're designed that way because there's a big difference between a bronzer and a contour. Bronzer is meant to add warmth, so they're all gonna be warm. Whereas a contour is meant to be more gray based because it's meant to give you that natural, enhancing this natural shadow, which all shadows are gray. Does that make sense? So it is a preference thing. And I find that I try to match people based on their skin. And if their skin looks like it's gonna pull red, if you have redness, I automatically are gonna give you more of a neutral tone. I'm not gonna give you a warmer tone, because I know a warmer tone will pull more warm on you than someone without redness. And so if you don't choose to color correct, you don't need a warm tone, okay? After that, in my opinion, it's preference. If you start with olive, which is more of a warm neutral, and it pulls red on you, don't go to stone. It's more warm, okay? You're gonna go down to henna, which is a cool neutral, or even the coolest one at that level is ash. You're using the coolest one at that level, and you're saying it's pulling warm on you, there is nowhere else to go unless you choose to color correct first. That is the only option. We have a couple different, say, cool tones at different, I'd say, skin depths, skin tone, like light, medium, and dark. But they're all about the same undertone. They're just different depths. So I don't feel like I can just say, oh, we'll try this one. I'm gonna go, okay, we're gonna start troubleshooting. We're gonna talk about application. How are you applying? Because sometimes it's not even just color, it's how you're applying it. This is why it's so hard for me not to talk about application, because if you say that it's not really the tone and it's just not showing up, and you're wearing the darkest contour you can at your skin tone, it has nothing to do with the contour or the color. Our contours are just very dry. And so application becomes a very big part of it. You have to apply enough. So I'm gonna show you guys, we're gonna do some bronzer. So we're gonna go ahead and use Astoria, which is cool. and I'm just gonna show you how I apply it, just so you understand. I am very strategic at my contour. I'm going to pounce in half on my brush, and then I'm going to just tap it. So if I was to just go willy-nilly in here with my contour and do this, it's almost like all that color correction will be for nothing, because guess what? It's gonna all mix together. It's gonna expose all my dark spots. It's gonna expose my rosacea, but by gently kind of just tapping on to apply and to blend, I can literally wear every single contour color we have, because it's not about the color, it's about the application. And so this one's a little bit harder for me to talk about color, but the gist is, if you feel like you're applying your contour and you look dead, I don't know how else to describe it. It's making you look unalive. It's not blending is one. It looks dirty. That usually means it's too cool. You need to go one warmer at that level. So say you're using ash, which is the coolest of the mid-level ones, you would go up to henna. If you're using henna and it isn't blending, you'd go up to olive. And if you're using olive, you'd go up to stone. Olive mostly pulls warm on people. And so the other opposite end of the spectrum is it's pulling to red or orange. And so if you don't need color correction in there, it's just too warm of a contour, the same thing goes. If you're using stone, you can try olive. If you're using olive, henna, ash. And then the darker colors, we don't have as many options, just because they're kind of all at different levels. They're, in my opinion, not all the same depth. But Astoria is the coolest. Now we have cedar, which is one of the newest ones. Indigo is kind of a trickier one. It doesn't really follow all the rules. It can really look unblended, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it's too cool, because it's actually on the warmer side of the spectrum, but it is just very finicky with skin texture. So if you have texture in this area, avoid it at all costs. And if you notice it looking a little patchy, exfoliate. Exfoliation is truly, in my opinion, the key to wearing indigo. Or if you're very fair and trying to wear that dark of a shade, sometimes that is why. It's pretty dark. Now I can wear it, but if I haven't exfoliated, it doesn't look good. Now, if you were color matched to shadow, which is a detail only contour, and you're using on your full face, it most likely will give you issues. Now, shadow is the coolest, most gray-based contour we have. It's designed for noses, because noses typically pull more red than anywhere else. And so shadow is designed so that you can nose contour and it's not gonna pull red. It's not designed for full face because it's difficult to blend, okay? So just know, if you're using shadow, I recommend switching to Astoria for your face and just keeping shadow for nose and maybe like under the lower lip. It is a good general rule of thumb to hold those cool contours for noses, especially if you have a very red nose like me. I can use Astoria. Shadow definitely gives me the most chiseled nose possible. But since I usually have Astoria in my daily palette, I typically grab it and it works great. Let's quickly just hit on brightener shade, because we do have, I feel like this entire side is brightener category, all of these. Typically, they are not main shades without correctors. It's very rare. They are typically used to kind of give that pop under the eyes, down the bridge of the nose to really pop your nose contour, or to keep you matching if you have a lighter neck and you need to press it along the jawline. The tricky thing about a brightener shade is that if you go too light for your skin tone, or if you have more mature skin, just know the lighter you go, the more texture it will enhance on the skin. It's just kind of a nature of how our creams work. And too light, you'll see it more like sitting in pores, especially if you try to apply it directly to your skin without correction and a main shade first. I cannot wear any brightener without correcting and using my main shade first so that these will sit on my skin without giving all of those issues. And so typically when I see people are like, oh, I want a really great pop of highlight, and they're trying to go directly in with the lightest brightener, and it's because they saw a 20-year-old artist doing that. That person might be able to get away with it. Me, not a chance. Like, it will increase the look of my texture under my eyes, which is my problem area, so much. Now, I will be honest, the only way I can wear one of these is if I use one of these and then layer this over it. It's literally like night and day. I call it stair stepping. It's just like when you're trying to correct a really dark spot. You have to use a really dark highlight, way too dark than you'd have to use. Then you use a not so dark one to kind of cover that. Then you use another step to kind of cover that and bring it back down to the level you want, whether that's matching your whole face or whatever the case may be. Same thing goes with a brightener, that accent brightener shade. If I was to go directly with a light one, it immediately shows texture. It sits in all of the wrong places, and it also wears off really fast. It just doesn't look pretty. My normal everyday brightener is Aura. If I want to pop, I can put a small amount, and always remember with your accent brightener, less is more. Small amount of linen over that to give me that pop, but yet it's not going to accentuate because I have kind of brought the level of my skin down one more tone, if that makes sense. And so then that shade will sit better over that color than it will a color 4 shades dark. Just like using a shade too light over a dark point, you're just going to show texture, or it's not going to give coverage, it's going to wear off. The same thing goes when you're trying to highlight portions of your face. So I'm just going to use a small amount of Aura, and I'm just going to very strategically avoid all of the most wrinkled areas and kind of highlight the side of my nose, which is more or less flat, and right here, because I have more mature skin, this gives me that brightening effect without increasing the texture. Now, this also goes for noses. This area is notorious for texture. So anywhere you have an increase of texture on your own face, so like here I have a lot of texture. I have had more blemishes probably on my chin than anywhere else on my face. So this is just more textured. Guess what? I am not going to apply my brightener there because it's only going to emphasize it. So anywhere on your face, if you have a lot of crow's feet like I do, guess what? I'm not going to follow the trends and put a brightener there. It's only going to emphasize that texture. But I'm going to concentrate on where on my face has the least amount of texture. And I can still get the same effect without putting a shade on it that's just going to make it look worse, okay? So do it for your face. If you have maybe scarring or acne texture, right here is also a notorious spot. People have texture. You don't have to brighten there. You can go above that if you want to kind of brighten your forehead and avoid right in between your brows, which typically has more texture than other parts of your face. So be a little bit strategic, and that color will work for you. But the brightener shade, you don't have to go as light as possible. You just want to keep it around your undertone. So when people say they want a brighter tone, I always don't just be like, oh yeah, you can skip it. Here's one, skip that one and just go down one lower. It completely depends on how light your lightest undertones are. I don't have super light undertones. This is why anything light on me, it won't sit well on my skin. You can't necessarily just shade down, as some artists say, down one if you want a brighter tone. Now, if you get lighter, say in the fall, depending on what your colors were before, you might be able to just shade down one as a brightener, but it truly depends on each person. It depends on the lightest points of your face. And so when I'm picking a brightener, I'm sometimes picking it in combination with your other colors so I can make sure you stay matching. Sometimes I have to pick, say, a cooler toned one to give you overall a balance. Sometimes I have to go lighter because your neck isn't going to match otherwise unless you put the color here. So there are a lot of different factors. I would never just say go lighter, go down one. And they're all different undertones as well. So you can kind of tell some are a little bit more yellow, some are a little bit more pink. And so that depends on your undertones. If you have cool undertones, I would never give you a yellow based brightener like I'm wearing here. It is going to look bad on your skin tone. It's not going to look natural. And I don't recommend a brightener unless it's going to look natural. Okay, once I've finished applying my brightener, I'll be honest, I will never skip this, because if you look really close, it is still going to emphasize texture if you don't use this bad boy. Okay, I layered 3 shades under my eyes. There's no way that that's not going to crease. You can probably tell it's already starting to crease without the perfector, which is the key to removing excess. So I'm not even gonna go into it. It's an application method, non-negotiable in my opinion, if you're using this type of application method. So I'm gonna use this everywhere. I'll be right back. Okay, once I've removed excess, I have to set. Doesn't matter if I have the right colors, if I applied the right amount, I have enough just lower points in my face, aka fine lines, that I have to set, or these creams will migrate there because they do not set on their own. You have to set them somehow. So I always go around my eyes, on my lids, so I have an eyeshadow base. And then anywhere I just want to mitigate some shine. Now, you can get an increase of creasing if you're using, again, highlight shade too light. Obviously, that is, again, over application. Product that is on your face, the more it's gonna go to the lowest points of your face. And so creasing, even wearing off on your clothes, wiping off, rubbing off on clothes, that again, most oftentimes than not, is because you're wearing too light of a shade, having to apply too much product. Let's very quickly just touch on bronzer, because sometimes people tell me something's too warm or just not working for them. And I will say always start with Bella unless specifically mentioned another one in your color match. I will tell people their options. Bella is the most universal. Obviously, if you have very dark skin tone, it's not gonna work, but I've even seen the lightest skin tones can still wear Bella, and that again is based on how you're applying it. Now, if you go straight in with a dense brush and go straight into the face, you're gonna be like, oh, it's like too dark, too orange. But I'm telling you, if you learn to just kind of dip in or swirl in and then gently press on the skin to where you are slowly building up the color, any skin tone can wear Bella, in my opinion. I will tell you, if tan lines is a good option, that is for the fairest of fairest skin tones. If you are, say, amber, Athens, or darker, I wouldn't even mess with tan lines. I would start with Bella. Then we have High Tide is a little bit darker and warmer. And then here's High Tide. It's, in my opinion, a little bit warmer, a little bit more red than Bella. And then High Tide, you can tell, is much more red. It is for darker skin tones. It is definitely darker. I'll be honest, I don't recommend Palm. I think it's way too yellow for a bronzer. And if you have naturally yellow in your skin, it's gonna make you look jaundiced. So I don't recommend it. I don't even color match to it. So it's probably one of the few things from Seint that I won't recommend. I'm gonna go ahead and do my OG Bella and Glow. I like to swirl into both. If I'm feeling extra fair that day, I will even tap into high tide or heat waves and kind of just give myself a little bit. But the key is, again, application. It is a very sheer product. And so if you're applying it with a dense brush, it's going to apply more color. And if you don't need it, it's gonna look too warm on you. So again, I don't necessarily even wear bronzer every day. I wear it when I feel like it, when I feel like I need warmth. Remember, it adds warmth. That is purely the point of a bronzer. So a lot of times people will need it on their neck to warm it up so that they kind of stay matching their face. That is how you were matched. I recommend Bella. If you're saying Bella is pulling orange on you, how are you applying it? You're most likely applying too much or too concentrated on one spot. If you swirl, kind of just tap, because again, I'm not moving all that product I just placed perfectly. If I have to work on blending it out, it's all just gonna blend all of my creams together. I'm gonna lose coverage and it is gonna pull me overall too warm. Quickly go through my favorite part, the best part of Seint, which is lip and cheeks, because they're dual purpose blush and lip color, and mixing and matching literally makes this makeup the most fun makeup on the planet, and I stand by that. So when it comes to color, this is 100% personal preference. I will put in and link, I did a video on cool and warm, and in my opinion, the way you can figure out what kind of lip and cheek works for you is by testing both a satin formulation and then either a semi-gloss or a gloss. By testing those, you will know if you like the glowy look or if you like a more matte look, if you like the more pigmented shades or a little bit sheer, and then you can go from there. Because now I got half of them in my palette here, but like these are all glosses or semi-gloss. Those are my favorite because I like the glow to my cheeks, but some people can't stand the tacky feeling or their hair getting stuck in their face or whatever the case may be. A lot of times I recommend using a satin shade, one of the matte shades, and then putting a little bit of gloss over it so you get the glow, but you don't need to apply so much gloss to get the pigmentation that your face will then feel sticky. So I recommend trying a satin, trying one of each, and then going from there based on color. All of these have different undertones. So if you like, some people just come to me and say they have no idea what they like. And so I'd say stick with something neutral. You can either go warmer or cooler from there. So I did a video on which shades are warm, which ones are warmer or cooler based on in their categories. So like all the nudes, all the pinks, all the peaches, all those. If you're like me and are just a blush lover and love them all, you will find that you will have your favorites after testing them all, but mixing is definitely the most fun part. And the cool thing about these lip and cheeks is I feel like you can't go wrong with color if it's in a category you love. So say you love pinks, then you kind of just need to decide, am I gonna go straight in the middle, a very neutral pink? That way after that I can go cooler or warmer depending on what I thought of that one. Are you gonna test a few different ones? Because we truly have something at every undertone. And so if you know you like warm undertones, then you can look at that chart and figure out which warms you like. If you like peaches naturally, you like warm shades. But if you try something like Tiger Lily and you're like, wow, that's way more warm than I expected, then you can learn undertones and maybe apply a cooler tone over it to neutralize it. So the cool thing about building a collection of lip and cheeks is that if you have some of these, say, warmer colors and cooler colors, you can mix and match and you can definitely adjust your shades as you try a new one. So say I got a new lip and cheek and I was like, okay, that's just different than I expected. It doesn't look what it looked like on the artist that I saw putting it on. Knowing how to adjust it is how I like to teach my clients to figure out what they love and what they don't love, because you don't want to get a color and be like, I'm just never going to use it again. I'm going to throw it away. Because guess what? It can become your new favorite when layered with another product, when mixed with something. Some of my favorite concoctions are when I mix 3 shades on my cheeks and I just start layering and having fun with it. So I have not worn this shade in a while, so let's go in with Pop. Obviously, reds are warm, okay? Orange and reds are warm. Pinks can be anywhere from a cooler pink to a warmer pink, depending on the tone. Peaches are all warm. Neutrals can also pull cool or warm. So when you have a red shade, obviously it's gonna lean in the warm. First time you apply something, it's hard to tell how pigmented it might be. So we're just going to lightly tap in and just like I like it, barely tap on until the color is how I like it. You dip in too much, tap on the back of your hand. Now, we recently just launched a couple colors that I think are genius because they will allow you to adjust. Because if I put this on and it's too warm, guess what? Pick a cool tone and now we have a straight up, completely cool tone, which is Lavender Skies. And this is gonna make this color much more of a cool pink when layered. But I keep showing that same one, so I'm gonna show you the same concept. Oh, the same thing applies with, it's now in my favorites palette. The orange shade, this is Disco Inferno. Same kind of thing. It's obviously more of a bright orange, so it's gonna be closer to this category. It's gonna be warm. But you can use that one to also warm up a cool tone. Like plum, for example, is one of the coolest undertones we have, but sometimes it can make someone look a little dead. I'll be honest, because anything like leaning towards that gray spectrum, you might have to add bronzer with it to make sure it doesn't pull that way, or you can pull out one of these red tones. That's why I like these glosses. You can just kind of barely add a little bit of a orange or red over it to then warm it up. Again, you can use Bella bronzer in the same way, but if I had this color and I thought it was too warm, I'm gonna pick a cooler tone to layer over it. Let's go in with Summer Love. This is a, in my opinion, cooler nude, but kind of in the pink category. I just melted this one, so it is very creamy. Okay, so you can tell it brought it down to more of a pink than a red, right? It might be easier to kind of see the transition on the lips. So let's do, and Pop is one of our more pigmented glosses. So say you try it and you're like, a little bit still too red for your preference for that look of the day, whatever the case may be. Let's cool it down. And we make it more of a pink tone. Actually lends quite cool already because I put on quite a bit of this. So makeup can be so fun, especially when you understand how to tweak it and make it work for you. So when it comes to picking a lip and cheek shade, I always say my motto is you gotta experiment, because you might not think certain colors are gonna look good on you, but I urge you to try something out of your comfort zone. I'll be honest, I never in a million years would have thought I liked orange blushes, and now they are some of my very favorites. And it's just because I tested them when I didn't think I would like them. Now, if I wouldn't have liked that, all I would have had to do is put a cool tone with it and mix it. And guess what? I'm gonna have a new combination, a new shade I can wear. I refuse to believe that I will ever have a color in my compact I can't wear, because I will know how to tweak it to make it work for me. So if you just are like, Sarah, no, I don't wanna mix colors, I don't wanna da-da-da-da-da, then follow the chart. If you know what you like, if you know you like cool pinks, stick with the cool pinks. If you know you like peaches, then stick within that. You can maybe kind of test out different undertones within the neutrals, the nudes, and you might be surprised. Still staying a little bit safe in the process, but I'm telling you, life is too short to wear one lip and cheek. It is too much fun to play mad scientist and mix and match and create a brand new look every single day of the week. Okay, so we're almost done. We're just gonna hit Illuminators real quick. This is another one that I feel like if you have tried the powders, you will really like them if you like a very blinding highlight, okay? They are very blinding. You can tell this one's gonna be very cool, this one's gonna be very, very warm, a little bit more neutral, and pink, which is kind of in the middle, depending on, it's just personal preference. The powders are very blinding, okay? So just know that. I typically don't recommend them for mature skin starting out. If you're brand new to Seint, I recommend sticking with a cream. If you have cool undertones or you like icy tones, then you can stick with Pearl, but I will color match you to these shades. I typically find I have some limited edition ones in here that aren't always available, but I find Angel is the most universal for lighter skin tones and Rose Gold for darker skin tones. And if you have tried them and you say they don't show up on you, that is usually an application issue. Because they are a little bit more of a sheer formula, I like to recommend applying them with a perfector. So this is the newest one that's not limited edition. This is Nova. It's more of this like bronzy gold. I love this for when you got a tan. It is my current favorite. I'm gonna go ahead and not just use my finger, I'm going to swipe in generously. It's the only thing you'll ever see me tell you to swipe into. And then, so you can tell this is just naturally with my lip and cheek and my skin. And to add that golden bronzy shimmer, we're just gonna put it where you want it. Now, you might be like, I can barely see that, Sarah. These are designed to be natural, okay? They're meant to catch light as you turn your head. They are not meant to be that blinding highlight look. The powders are more blinding, okay? So if you say you can't see it, I urge you to swipe in a little bit more, press on a little bit more, but really making sure you're adding up enough product is what I would say, or going opposite of what I would consider natural. So for me, Nova and Rose Gold look beautiful and natural on my skin tone because I have a more medium skin tone. If I wanted to really see it, I'm actually gonna go opposite. I'm gonna go really light. Like Pearl is like very icy, therefore doesn't really go with my natural skin tone. Therefore you can see it way more. I will match you to what's gonna look natural on you because that is kind of the purpose of our cream illuminators, is for a natural looking highlight, okay? Obviously, that is going to be another personal preference. Okay, so per usual, didn't even have time to get to eyeshadow. I have talked a lot about undertones and how to tweak shades for eyeshadows before, so I will link something that will help down below. But let me know if you need that would probably take an entire video to go over eyeshadow colors. But I hope that was helpful in learning a little bit more about when a color might be off, when it might be application, when you might need a new color match, a little bit more about our shades and our line and how to kind of figure out what might work best for you. That is why there are artists here to help you guys out. I am happy to recolor match you. And if you think yours could possibly be off a little, or you just need a little bit of tweaking, or say you don't understand why a color's just not working for you, I'd be happy to help you troubleshoot. My color match request is in the drop box below the video, as well as all of the colors I used in today's look. And also I will put all the links you might need for both a 3D Demi match and eyeshadow matches in the pinned comment. As always, thank you guys so much for being here and watching, and I'll see you next week. Love you.